One mic, one question, 15 minutes, just a mic. Warning: the Just a Mic podcast may contain scenes of vaping, graphic news footage, and where warranted, profanity. Hi, and welcome to the very first episode of the Just a Mic podcast. I'm Mike Corcoran, and I will be your host and fellow tourist, if you will, on this adventure, this journey of discussion, debate, dissent, and discovery on topics like politics, religion, AI, mental health, and figuring life out. Topics we're not supposed to talk about at the dinner table and on LinkedIn, where this pod is going to drop first before it goes out on Substack and wherever you get your favorite podcasts. First, a note about the format of the pod. It's quite simple. It features just a mic, usually just one guest, just one question, and 15 minutes. So let's get started. And for this very special episode of Just a Mic, our special guest is me. Now, before you roll your eyes, consider that the question is one that, especially if you know me, you probably want answered. And that question is, Mike, why on earth are you doing a podcast? And the answer is simple, and it's kind of paraphrasing a famous Stoic philosopher named Cato. If not me, then who? If not now, then when? And if not here, then where? So let's tackle those in reverse chronological order, and the clock is ticking. So let's see what we can get done in the next 15 minutes. If not here, then where? Because all of us here at the Just a Mike podcast believe that LinkedIn, again, where the podcast is going to drop first, LinkedIn should be a global community of non anonymous adults who make business run, where you can't hide behind corporate tweets or anonymous tweets because it's not Twitter, where every account, whether it's a personal, business, or even an AI account, has a voice. And that voice is your brand. And silence speaks just as loudly as words when it comes to what your brand represents. Now, having said all that, what I don't want you to do is smash that subscribe button and hit that like and share and throw your thoughts in the comments below. No. For now, all I want you to do is hit that save button. In LinkedIn, it's three dots or a little ribbon. No one can see it. I don't even think I can see it. Just save it so you've got it for future reference. And when you're ready, then come back. And then you can comment, like, dislike, agree, disagree, or share. But for now, just save. So if not now, then when? For as of the recording of this podcast, it is now Monday, July 13th, 2026. So it has been roughly 250 years since the founding fathers of the United States wrote a poetic document that articulated an idea that defined a nation. And now we are roughly 4 months away from a midterm election in which tens of millions of votes will be cast, but I do not believe they will be counted. It's been roughly 18 months since I started what you'd probably call a spiritual journey, a journey through mindfulness and meditation, Taoism, Buddhism, Stoicism, lots of isms. And it's been about 2 days since my last awakening, what the Japanese might call a Kensho or Satori event. It's been roughly 10 months, I believe, since the one co conspirator held to account, the one co conspirator of the most notorious child sex trafficker in the United States, to be held accountable in the United States, was transferred to a minimum security open prison. It's been about 4 months since the world's leading scientists, particle scientists, theoretical scientists, I don't know what other kind of scientists there are, world's leading scientists gathered at Princeton for a meeting of what's called the Institute for Advanced Study, world's smartest minds. And they agreed that the commercially available, not the ones coming down the road, commercially available AI LLMs on the market today, like Claude and Perplexity, already do their jobs, 90% of their jobs, better than them, let alone the rest of us in what you might call intellectual labor. It's been about 6 weeks since the end of Mental Health Awareness Month. And I don't know about you, but I'm not sure we're any more aware or mindful of mental health today. I don't think the corporate world is any more tolerant of mental health issues than about 15 years ago when I struggled darkly with my own mental health issues. And finally, it's been just a couple hours since I saw a great TED Talk by a gentleman named Miles Taylor. Miles was a senior staffer in the national security senior staffer for the first Trump administration. He was giving a TED Talk on the cost of dissent in the United States today, the cost of dissent in a democracy, dissent and debate. The cost to him, because he has since been quite critical of the Trump administration, the Trump regime, if you will. And the cost to him is he and his family have had to move 2 or 3 times across the country and change phone numbers and everything because not only has his life been threatened and his wife's, but their 1 year old daughter. And this is not limited to one side of the political spectrum. This is across the political spectrum. Uh, and that cost is too high. So everyone knows supply and demand curve. The only way to bring costs down is either reduce demand or increase supply. And we do not, in a functioning democracy, of which a constitutional republic very much is, you we want dissent and debate and discussion. We want to question the government. We want to question the Pentagon on Air Force One and the press corps. We want to question the White House. We need to question our government as part of a functioning democracy, including a constitutional republic or a parliamentary democracy. Um, so we need to keep the demand up, which means the only way to bring down that cost is to increase supply. Or as Miles puts it, we need to take away anonymity. We need to unmask. And unmasking is part of what I'm trying to do, and I hope you'll join me in doing here on Just a Mic. So, if not me, then who? And on this note, I could go on at length about what I think are my credentials, about my riding my BMX bike along the walls of Sing Sing and throwing the racket balls back over to the yard for the inmates to play with before the guards chased us away, or how my engineering and tech careers took me from Alberta to Argentina, from the Shenandoah to the Tennessee River Valley. But you can read all about that in my LinkedIn profile. Uh, all I'll say about If Not Me Then Who is that sometimes it takes a Canadian. A Canadian like the Right Honourable Mark Carney, who reminded the world a couple of months ago at Davos that the world can always trust Canada, and reminded world leaders what backbone looks like. Just the other day, he reminded separatist thinkers in Quebec and Alberta that Canada is worth fighting for. Although Mr. Carney would have gone a step further and said Canada is not yours for the taking, but that's a topic for another day. Sometimes it takes a Canadian like David Frum, former George W. staffer, Atlantic editor, and host of the David Frum Show, where he had Fareed Zakaria on not that long ago, where they talked about why and how proud they were and are still to be U.S. citizens and what it represents to them. Sometimes it takes a Canadian like the anonymous Canadian that has been critical of the Trump regime and as a result is now the target of a Trump DOJ campaign to dox him, to bring him to justice, so to speak, for exercising his free speech. Who knows? Sometimes it takes a Canadian like Malcolm Gladwell, who was at the 92nd Street Y in New York not too long ago, and he talked about how journalism is more than just a profession, it is a calling. And finally, it takes a Canadian, well, not finally, it takes a Canadian, sometimes it takes a Canadian like Margaret Atwood, who more than 40 years ago wrote The Handmaid's Tale, which until recently was up there with 1984 and Brave New World as an iconic piece of dystopian fiction. And finally, sometimes it takes a Canadian like me. Hello, and pardon the interruption, but you may have noticed a few seconds ago I made reference to The Handmaid's Tale as, up until recently, an iconic work of dystopic fiction. Or dystopian, whatever the word is, you understand what I mean. The reason I say that is because of recent events. At least the TV adaptation, the movie, the book tells the story of a nation called Gilead, a post-U.S. nation called Gilead, a white Christian nationalist nation where women are property for breeding and was going to say little else, but really nothing else. Nothing else, called Gilead. The excellent TV adaptation. Well, the TV adaptation you'll see starts a bit earlier than that. Anyway, let's. I'm going to show you 3 videos that underscore why I believe that The Handmaid's Tale is no longer dystopian fiction, but recent history and warning sign. We're going to start with the first video, courtesy of my man, Tom Viator, Pod Save America, and the video of the shooting of the first U.S. citizen, Renee Good, at the hands of federal agents in what has been called a gangland-style execution. I've watched these, so I insist you watch as well.
Officers. So here is the footage of the incident itself. Again, be warned, it's pretty disturbing, but here we go.
Indeed. Video 2 comes to us courtesy of my best pals, as JBL likes to say. JBL is another co-host on The Bulwark. My best pals, Tim Miller. Sorry, I'm just trying to get rid of this chat here. Tim Miller, Sarah Longwell, and Andrew Edgar of The Bulwark podcast. Watch.
Other side.
Okay, so that's him right there.
Go.
He's basically directing traffic. Right now he's filming.
What the fuck is wrong with you?
The agent pushes that woman, sprays him in the face, continues to spray him in the face.
The fuck, people? What the fuck is wrong with you? Honestly.
That's enough. Now, video 3. This is the TV adaptation of The Handmaid's Tale that I mentioned earlier, co-executive produced by Margaret Atwood herself, starring the great Elizabeth Moss as Offred or June. See if you see anything familiar. Agree or disagree? Either way, back to season 1, episode 1 of Just a Mic. And that brings us to the conclusion of the inaugural episode of Just a Mic. And I thank you for joining me, and I hope you will join me, and join us for future episodes as I welcome guests, including political candidates and politicians, doctors, scientists, engineers, even philosophers, and leaders, government leaders, business leaders, and faith leaders to talk about politics, religion, mental health, and other things we're not supposed to talk about either on LinkedIn or at Thanksgiving dinner. But we should, because to solve some of the truly existential problems facing humanity, democracy, and decency today, we need to start talking. But before we can start talking, we need to start listening. That's what I hope to do here, and that's what I hope you'll join me in doing here on the Just a Mic podcast. Thanks again, and I look forward to seeing you at the next episode.
The Just a Mic podcast is brought to you by Resist and Unsubscribe. Not because they sponsor us, but because Scott Galloway and Kara Swisher started a movement. And it's never too late to join. Just a Mic is brought to you by The Onion. Not because they sponsor us. In fact, we subscribe to the print edition. And because every headline, every brilliant, funny headline, is only off by a word or a degree. The Just a Mic podcast is brought to you by Ground News, not because they sponsor us, but because they provide a vital service in this era of a shaky fourth estate. The Just a Mic podcast is also brought to you by Kali Yuga, because they do sponsor us. Kali Yuga, human listening for an AI world. And finally, the Just a Mic podcast is definitely brought to you by the campaign to elect Mike Corcoran to the City Council of Toronto, representing the great ward of Parkdale High Park. The Just a Mic podcast was written and produced by Mike Corcoran, Will Franklin, our pal Dre, with a lot of help from Claude, of course. For more information, visit justamic.ca.